Cassie Bloom didn't scream when the sky exploded. She just stared up from her coffee shop table, blinked twice at the vortex of swirling blue light above the city, and muttered, "Of course this happens before I finish my latte." Then a beam of shimmering green yanked her through the air like an unpaid bar tab, and she disappeared, leaving behind her phone half a muffin and a receipt with a loyalty stamp just one cup away from a free drink. One moment, she was in Midtown Portland trying to decide if she should text her ex, and the next, she was weightless, spinning inside a translucent bubble that smelled faintly like lemons and printer toner. Her limbs flailed as gravity stopped existing, and then violently reasserted itself. She landed with a thud on a floor made of some soft metallic material that hissed under her weight. Lights blinked above her, and two towering figures stared down tall, cloaked in armor-like robes, with eyes like liquid mirrors. One of them held what looked like a clipboard made of light. The other pointed at her with an accusing finger. "Citizen Cassiopeia Bloom," said the taller one, "you stand accused of violation 482K, chronomalfeasance on a Class 3 timeline. How do you plead?" Cassie stared at them, still lying on her side. Her voice came out flat. "I don't even know what those words mean. Also, I'm just a data analyst. I mostly delete emails and forget Zoom passwords. Can I at least put on shoes?" The two figures glanced at each other. The one with the clipboard whispered something that sounded like, "Did we get the right one?" The other shrugged. Cassie sat up slowly and rubbed her temples. "You've made a mistake. There's no way I committed, whatever that was. Also, why do you talk like space cops from a low-budget movie?" "We are Galactic Executioners," said the taller one with pride. "We do not make mistakes. Except for that one time on Zarnok 9. And that mix-up with the goat," added the other one, who introduced himself as Vec. His partner, Tronzer, looked annoyed. Cassie's first impulse was to laugh, which she did. A full belly laugh that echoed off the metal walls. Executioners? Really? For what unpaid taxes? A bad Yelp review? She doubled over. And then something about the silence made her stop. "You think this is a joke," Vec said, pulling up a holographic display. It showed a crude 3D rendering of Earth with blinking warnings around it. "You destabilized the local timeline. You're the epicenter." Cassie squinted at the image. "That's not me. Wait. That's my apartment. That's definitely my weird porch light. But I didn't do anything. Unless procrastination counts as destabilization." Tronzer began reading off a long list of infractions. Excessive sarcasm. Negligent time awareness. Cross-dimensional interference. Passive-aggressive behavior during lunar convergence. Cassie raised her hand. "First of all, if sarcasm is a crime, then you're going to need a bigger prison. Secondly, what the hell is lunar convergence?" "Your partner built a temporal anchor in your garage," Vec said flatly. "The machine disrupted the space-time field around your reality. Very messy. Quantum spaghetti levels of messy. We traced it all back to you." "Partner?" Cassie's stomach dropped. "You mean Doug? He wasn't my partner. He was my boyfriend. Briefly. Until I found out he was hiding cryptocurrency in the dishwasher." "Wait. Are you saying this is Doug's fault?" There was a long pause. Then Vec muttered, "You dated Doug? Oh stars. That explains everything." Cassie stood up, brushing off imaginary dust. "So I get abducted because my ex-boyfriend played with physics while I was watching Grey's Anatomy? You can't be serious." Tronzer pulled out another glowing screen. "According to protocol, you're guilty until proven less guilty. You'll stand trial before Alarion Supreme, who will decide your fate. If you're found to be the correct violator, the penalty is immediate nullification." "You mean like execution?" Cassie blinked. "Nullified? That sounds like something you do to a bug on a windshield." "It is a swift and dignified process," said Vec. "Usually. Unless the paperwork is late. Which it is. So you've got time to say goodbye. Or not. Up to you." Cassie folded her arms. "I'm not the one you want. Doug's the mad scientist here. I barely passed high school physics. I still think gravity is just Earth hugging us aggressively." Vec looked nervous. "There's a small chance we abducted the wrong individual." There's a larger chance we're not allowed to admit that. Just then, the walls began to vibrate. Alarms blared in tones Cassie felt in her molars. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. Subject confirmed. Initiate Phase 2, summon Juggernaut. Cassie looked around wildly. What the hell is a Juggernaut? Sounds like a bad name for a protein shake. Tronzer paled. Juggernaut is not a what. He's the final enforcer. The last word in cosmic justice. Once he is summoned, the process cannot be stopped. Cassie's voice dropped. What happens if it turns out I really am the wrong person? Tronzer looked at Vec. Vec looked at the floor. Then we hope you can run very, very fast. And with that, the chamber doors opened to reveal an approaching silhouette. Massive, glowing, and humming to itself. As the shadow moved closer, Cassie could hear it singing in a language she didn't know, but her bones understood. Something about judgment. Something about endings. Something about lattes going cold before their time. Cassie Bloom, accidental timeline terrorist, former girlfriend to a man who invented a cosmic disaster while wearing Crocs, was officially out of her depth. And still barefoot. She swallowed hard and whispered to herself, I swear, if I live through this, I'm changing my dating app filters to no engineers. The Juggernaut was not what Cassie expected. For starters, it didn't walk into the room so much as fold itself into the space, like someone had asked reality to make room for a cosmic freight train dipped in gold and rage. The light around it bent and shimmered, as if even photons couldn't decide whether to stay or flee. It stood at least 12 feet tall, half machine, half myth, with long arms wrapped in flowing cloth inscribed with ancient runes that looked suspiciously like corporate logos. Its face was covered by a polished black mask shaped like a teardrop, and when it spoke, the sound came not from its mouth, but from somewhere inside everyone's minds, deep, resonant, and oddly poetic. Justice has no shadow, for it burns too brightly to cast one. It intoned, stepping forward. I am Juggernaut. I am the consequence. Cassie stared, slack-jawed. You're kidding, she whispered. You speak in riddles? Are you a cosmic judge or a Pinterest quote board? Juggernaut didn't seem to mind the sarcasm. It tilted its head, examining her. Biological humor detected. An adaptive coping mechanism. Unusual, but not irrelevant. Tronzer cleared his throat nervously. Mighty Juggernaut, we have summoned you to execute nullification protocol on the accused. The subject has been identified as Cassiopeia Bloom of Earth. Designated timeline 341 beta. Before the words could finish echoing, a sound like a cosmic printer jam echoed from somewhere above them, followed by a dry, robotic voice saying, Error. Timeline designation not verified. Source data corrupted. Recalculating. Vec's eyes widened. Oh. Cassie crossed her arms. So I'm still not even the right target, am I? Irrelevant, came the smooth, cold voice of Juggernaut. The process has begun. Until protocol completes or contradiction is proven, I remain. All resistance will be filed as insolence. Okay. Wow, so you're a murder robot and a bureaucrat, Cassie muttered. That's just perfect. What do I do now? File an appeal with your manager? As if summoned, the wall to the left split open, and a small orb floated into the room. It sparkled in pale blue and rotated slowly in the air, then unfurled into what looked like a floor lamp with arms. It gave a tired sigh. Greetings, said the lamp in a tone of absolute existential exhaustion. I am Form 92X, Defense Companion. You may refer to me as Lamp. I will attempt to keep you alive, although statistically, your odds are abysmal. Cassie stared. My lawyer's a lamp? Technically. I am an energy being trapped in a decor-based exoshell after an unfortunate poker game with an elder god, the lamp explained. But for all practical purposes, yes. I am your advocate. Try not to die until I at least file your innocence claim. This cannot be serious, Cassie whispered, pressing her palms against her temples. I'm standing trial for a crime I didn't commit. My only witness is my idiot ex-boyfriend. My prosecutor speaks in poems, and my defense attorney is a depressed IKEA reject. Lamp swiveled slightly. I'm from the Crate and Barrel constellation. Thank you. Juggernaut raised an arm. Commenced temporal review. The walls around them flickered, and a projection appeared in midair. Images of Cassie's apartment, the garage, the machine Doug had built. The scene zoomed in on Doug in his pajama pants, fiddling with wires connected to what looked like a blender crossed with a particle accelerator. Timeline anchor engaged, Doug muttered in the memory. Energy readings stabilizing. I'll just run it for a few seconds. Cassie'll never know. Cassie pointed at the scene. There. That's him. That's Doug. He's the one who made that thing. I didn't even know it was more than a glorified espresso machine. Insufficient data, Juggernaut said calmly. Emotional testimony is not admissible without corroborating logic trails. You were present at the anomaly's origin. I lived there. You can't execute people for being near dumb inventions. If that's the standard, half the planet should be vaporized because of microwave nachos. Lamp flickered dimly. She has a point. The appliance-based logic of Earth culture is notoriously unstable. Suddenly, the room shimmered again. Another memory projection appeared. This one from later that week. Doug, on a phone call. Yeah, I think the portal stabilized for now. Cassie doesn't suspect anything. She thinks the glowing light is from a new ring light I bought. Cassie turned slowly to Juggernaut, arms crossed, one eyebrow raised. There. That. Again. Evidence. Proof. He lied to me and literally bent space in my garage. Juggernaut remained motionless. Timeline anomalies still trace to your biosignature. Because I lived there, Cassie said again, trying not to yell. You know what? Fine. Then let's bring him here. Let's summon Doug. You want justice? Let's get the actual idiot responsible in front of your poetic metal face. A silence followed. Then Vex said, that's actually not a terrible idea. If we can summon him through the chrononet. Lamp groaned. If we must invoke the idiot clause, so be it. The chamber lights dimmed and a transmission beam shot toward Earth. A moment later, with a loud pop and the smell of burnt toast, Doug appeared. He was holding a taco and wearing a hoodie that said quantum physics, mess around and find out. He looked around the room, blinking. Whoa, am I high or is this an intergalactic courtroom? Cassie didn't hesitate. You idiot. Tell them the truth. Tell them I didn't help you build that thing. Doug nodded slowly. Oh, yeah. No, she didn't help. I mean, she yelled at me for not recycling the copper wires, but that was it. Doug. The Juggernaut loomed above him. Did you destabilize your timeline? Doug looked up, considering. I mean, not intentionally? I was trying to fold my student loan debt into a localized time pocket. So technically, yes. Lamp whispered to Cassie. You may be the first defendant in galactic history to be saved by someone this stupid. The chamber went still. Juggernaut stepped back. Protocol suspended. The accused is not the central anomaly. Cassie exhaled in one long breath. Thank you. Finally. Can I go home now? Negative. New directive issued. Earth is now flagged for temporal risk review. A planetary verdict must be issued. Until the High Tribunal renders judgment. Earth remains under probationary monitoring. Cassie blinked. Wait. What does that mean? It means, said Tronzer slowly, that your entire planet is on trial now. And to represent it, Juggernaut said, eyes glowing, the system has selected you, Cassiopeia Bloom. You shall act as Earth's legal ambassador to the High Tribunal. Cassie just stared at them, taco grease still on Doug's fingers, a lamp humming nearby, and a 12-foot iron poet looming over her. She was barefoot, emotionally overloaded, and apparently now responsible for defending an entire species in front of space bureaucracy. She sighed. Okay, great. This is my life now. Anyone got coffee? No, said Lamp. But I glow warmly. Cassie groaned. I miss Portland already. Cassie had never seen a courtroom quite like this. The Galactic Tribunal chamber stretched into infinity, or at least gave the illusion of doing so. The floor shimmered with a strange cosmic texture, like someone had poured stardust into water and then forgotten to stir. Giant glyphs rotated slowly in the air, shifting every few seconds, as though reality itself was struggling to decide what language it wanted to be in. And in the center, presiding over it all with an air of divine drama, sat Alarion supreme. Alarion's throne hovered without support, carved from obsidian and crystallized moonlight, draped in ribbons of color that didn't exist in the visible spectrum. His robe flowed as though caught in a constant breeze, despite there being no air. He radiated judgment like it was a fragrance. With a slight curl of his perfect lip, he spoke, his voice amplified not by microphones, but by sheer theatrical force. The court recognizes Cassiopeia Bloom of Earth as the planetary representative in the matter of chronoviolation 341 Beta. Let the inquiry begin. Cassie stepped forward, guided by Lamp, who now wore a pair of reading glasses purely for effect. The weight of everything hit her all at once. She was standing in a court that represented dozens of galaxies, defending Earth against bureaucratic extinction, with nothing but her sarcasm and a glow-in-the-dark lamp for help. She cleared her throat. Honorable, supreme, sir, person, entity. First of all, thanks for letting me stand here instead of being turned into a puddle by the poetry robot. Secondly, I just want to say I'm not a lawyer. I do spreadsheets, sometimes badly. So if this gets weird, blame the system that picked me. Alarion raised a single shimmering eyebrow. Earth has been flagged as an unstable reality node, temporal interference, cultural unpredictability, and an alarming number of scripted competitions involving singing. What is your defense? Cassie took a breath and gestured at the glowing display floating in front of her. Your own data shows that the anomaly began with a single individual, Doug. He's an isolated case of, I don't even know, nerd hubris. The rest of Earth didn't participate. Alarion waved his hand and the chamber filled with projections. Images of Earth flashed by wars, reality television, social media influencers, pouring cheese over everything, memes, stock market crashes, and something involving a llama in a courtroom. Alarion looked unimpressed. Are these the acts of a stable species? Cassie looked at the display, then at the audience of alien dignitaries watching from their ethereal balconies. Some of them had no eyes, but they still managed to look judgmental. She stepped forward again. Okay, yeah, fine, we're a mess. But being messy doesn't make us unworthy of existence. We argue and fall apart, but we also create. Music, stories, science, laughter. We're not dangerous by nature. We're just figuring stuff out. Sometimes that involves, sure, blowing up a garage or making questionable television. There was a murmur from the crowd. Juggernaut stood silent at the side, arms folded, watching. Alarion frowned and then turned to his assistant, a floating cube made of translucent glass. Earth's cultural contributions are insufficient to justify planetary exemption. Cassie blinked. Wait, what? What do you mean insufficient? The cube floated forward. Earth has no recorded artistic influence recognized by the upper core systems. Its output is considered emotionally erratic and lacking in harmonic clarity. Cassie stared. You're canceling Earth because we're not trendy? Alarion didn't flinch. Cultural significance determines existential worth in the outer accord. Therefore, if Earth wishes to avoid nullification, it must demonstrate value in the form of artistic resonance. A performance trial will commence. Hold on, Cassie said, raising her hands. You want us to sing for our survival? What is this, cosmic karaoke? Lamp leaned in and whispered, it's actually a formal component of the treaty. Expressive potential equates to universal integration. You'll have to perform. Or pick someone who can. Cassie spun to look at Doug, who was still chewing the end of his taco, blissfully unaware of anything useful. I am not a singer, she muttered. My last musical experience was badly humming the Jurassic Park theme in the shower. Doug raised his hand. I used to do poetry slams in college. About quantum theory. Cassie stared at him. Of course you did. The stage rose from beneath their feet. Lights, actual spotlights, flared across the chamber. Cassie felt a wave of nausea. She turned to Lamp again. This is ridiculous. We can't win this. Lamp blinked slowly. Historically speaking, about 1 in every 1,000 trial performances results in clemency. So technically, you have a better chance than in most cosmic death scenarios. Doug stepped forward and took the mic, which had apparently been manifested by space itself. He cleared his throat and began to rap. Entropy, my homie, the cosmic decay. Every molecule dancing in a randomized way. You can't reverse time, that's the universal truth. But I built a little box just to prove to you goofs. Cassie covered her face. Surprisingly, some of the tribunal members started nodding along. One large lizard-like creature tapped its claw in rhythm. A gelatinous mass jiggled enthusiastically. When Doug finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Alarion spoke again. The tribunal finds the performance intriguing, unrefined, chaotic, but resonant. Cassie felt a tiny sliver of hope, but it quickly vanished when Alarion added, however, it is not enough. Cassie stepped back onto the stage, eyes searching, mind racing. What could she possibly do? What song, what story, what anything would convince a group of interdimensional judges that Earth deserved to keep existing? Then she remembered something. A lullaby. Her mother used to sing it when she was little, back when the world felt safe. It wasn't grand or flashy. It was simple. It was human. She began to sing. Softly, awkwardly, but honestly. The melody floated through the chamber, fragile like spider silk. The words were meaningless to everyone else, but the feeling, the nostalgia, the warmth, the yearning, they crossed dimensions. As the final note faded, a heavy silence settled. Juggernaut moved. He stepped forward and bowed his head. I know this song. Cassie looked up in shock. This song, Juggernaut continued, was encoded into my consciousness millennia ago. It was one of the base frequencies used to calibrate my moral core. Its resonance reminds me of Earth. Cassie blinked. Are you saying you were built using Earth's lullabies? Juggernaut nodded. I had forgotten. But now I remember. I remember Earth. The room erupted into confused murmurs. Alarion stood, looking genuinely rattled for the first time. It appears Earth has precedent in Juggernaut's origin. That changes protocol. Cassie stepped back, stunned. So what now? Earth shall be spared, Alarion said, but under observation. It is placed on probationary status for 1 rotation cycle. If no further anomalies occur, clemency may become permanent. Cassie sighed in relief. Doug cheered. Lamp blinked like a satisfied toaster. The tribunal faded into light. The chamber dissolved. And just like that, Cassie was no longer on trial. Now, she was Earth's cosmic representative, whether she liked it or not. Cassie had thought surviving an intergalactic trial would earn her some rest, maybe even a hot shower and a donut. Instead, she was marched directly into what Lamp called the Cultural Redemption Annex, which sounded suspiciously like a trap. The corridor they entered pulsed with pastel lights and smelled like burnt marshmallows, and just ahead, a massive door opened to reveal a stage that looked like it had been stolen from a galactic award show. Glitter floated through the air with no source. Somewhere in the distance, a choir of robotic dolphins sang a haunting a cappella harmony. Cassie squinted and turned to Juggernaut. You said we were spared. Why are we heading into another arena with stage lights and sparkles? Juggernaut replied calmly, as always. Earth has been granted probation, not absolution. The tribunal requires evidence of Earth's sustainable cultural evolution. A single lullaby is insufficient. The next phase of review is performance-based. Cassie groaned. Of course it is. We're literally being forced to impress space judges with a talent show. I knew this universe was broken. A small alien with no face but 3 bow ties approached and handed Cassie a clipboard. Contestants must present an original or culturally significant performance. Judging begins in 1 Earth hour. Please do not attempt to flee or vomit on the judges. It happens more than you'd think. Doug leaned against a nearby wall, chewing the same taco that somehow still hadn't been finished. I have more poetry. I could do my wormhole sonnet. I rhymed tachyon with parmesan. It's bold. Cassie shook her head. No. 1 dose of your quantum slam poetry, is all the universe can handle. We need something better. Something real. She looked around the vast staging area. Creatures of every shape and density were prepping performances. One being made entirely of floating crystal shards rehearsed a monologue by Shakespeare in 8 dimensions. A duo of sentient winds practiced synchronized howling. A blob in a tutu juggled fire and sang opera. Cassie felt her stomach twist. This is impossible. We're just people. We can't compete with star choirs and lava ballerinas. Lamp floated up beside her, glowing faintly. Earth's strength is not in perfection. It's an emotional inconsistency. Unfiltered expression. Chaos packaged in sincerity. Your song worked before because it was simple and honest. So what do I do? Sing it again and hope Juggernaut cries? Unlikely, said Juggernaut. I have since updated my emotional firewall. But sentiment may still influence the tribunal if magnified appropriately. Cassie sighed and sat down on a nearby cube that molded itself into a chair. She watched the acts unfold in front of her, cosmic performers of staggering talent, each one more dazzling than the last. Her mind drifted back to her mom's lullaby, to singing badly in the car with friends, to dancing alone in her apartment in pajamas after a hard day. None of it was perfect, but all of it was real. And suddenly, she had an idea. We're not going to wow them with polished performance. We're going to show them the mess. The real stuff. The stuff that makes us human. Doug looked confused. Like crying during cartoons? Exactly. When their turn came, the stage lights dimmed. Cassie stepped into the glow, heart pounding. She took a breath, then turned to the crowd. We can't sing like star whales or juggle with gravity, she began. We don't glow or shapeshift or recite math in harmony. But Earth isn't about being the best. It's about being alive. Messy, hopeful, flawed, amazing. She stepped aside and waved to a projection screen behind her. A montage flickered to life. Home videos uploaded decades ago, hidden in corners of the internet and satellite broadcasts. A kid laughing with spaghetti on their face. 2 teenagers dancing in a parking lot. An elderly woman playing a piano in a small apartment. Fireworks over cities. Strangers hugging. Street performers. Fathers singing lullabies. People failing, laughing, crying, getting up again. This is who we are, Cassie said. We try. We break. We fix. We feel. The crowd was silent. Even the blob in the tutu had stopped bouncing. Then, unexpectedly, Doug stepped forward. He pulled out a small device from his pocket. It was battered and glowing faintly. The audience watched as he pressed a button, and a strange hum filled the chamber. A projection of Earth rose behind them, slowly rotating, overlaid with sound. A melody. Not quite music, not quite static. A heartbeat. Earth's electromagnetic field converted into sonic form. This is the sound of home, Doug said. It's what Earth sounds like if you tune into its breath. Juggernaut watched with interest. Alarion, seated again on his floating throne, leaned forward. Cassie felt it in her chest. A strange pride, a connection even to Doug. In this absurd place of stars and judgment, they were finally being seen for what they truly were. Not perfect, not polished, but real. When the performance ended, there was a long silence. Then a slow sound. Applause. First from the lava ballerina, then the wind duet, then the entire tribunal erupted in a standing ovation of varied forms. Some clapped, some pulsed colors. One even exploded in a small firework of approval. Alarion rose. The tribunal has reached a consensus. Earth's cultural output, while erratic and uneven, possesses emotional gravity. It stirs memory. It creates resonance. Probation is lifted. Earth is granted reprieve. Cassie's knees buckled slightly. Relief hit her like a crashing wave. She turned to Doug, who was beaming. Then to Lamp, who dimmed softly in satisfaction. Juggernaut gave a solemn nod, which was his version of a hug. Cassie stepped off the stage as the lights faded. She felt like she'd just run a marathon in a dream made of glitter and space logic. So, she said to no one in particular, "We won a cosmic talent show to save Earth." How do I even explain that in a job interview? Lamp floated beside her. You don't. You list it under transferable skills. Doug was still smiling. That was incredible. I think we bonded with the soul of the universe. Cassie sighed. Or maybe we just reminded it that humans are weird little miracles. Just as they reached the corridor leading out of the annex, a low chime sounded overhead. A new alert. Juggernaut stiffened. What now? Cassie groaned. A holographic message blinked into existence. Terra file compromised. Identity swap detected. Cassie's blood went cold. What does that mean? Juggernaut stepped forward, scanning the data stream. The file associated with Cassiopeia Bloom does not align with original Earth biometric records. Cassie stared at the message. No, that has to be a mistake. Doug looked at her, suddenly unsure. You're not from Earth? Cassie looked down at her hands at the floor, at the swirling cosmic logic she'd just barely navigated. The truth pressed in from the corners of her mind. A feeling she'd ignored all her life. Like she never truly fit. Like the world she called home had always been just slightly out of sync. I don't know, she whispered. Juggernaut turned. The tribunal must reconvene. This changes everything. Cassie took a shaky breath. Whatever this is, I want the truth. And as the chamber behind them dissolved and a new one formed in its place, Cassie Bloom prepared herself to find out who, or what, she really was. The room that formed around Cassie wasn't like the others. It didn't shimmer with cosmic elegance or hum with alien power. It was cold and clinical, the kind of room that made you think of teeth being pulled and secrets being forced into the light. The walls were a dull metallic gray, smooth and soundless, as if the air had been removed from the space along with the comfort. A single circular light hovered above, too bright and too white, casting sharp shadows beneath her eyes. Juggernaut stood beside her, silent, unreadable. Doug hovered in the doorway, reluctant. Taco finally abandoned. Lamp floated closer to Cassie, quieter than usual, as if even its usual sarcastic glow had been dimmed by the tension. A voice spoke, calm and stripped of all emotion. Data has been cross-referenced with galactic records. Subject Cassiopeia Bloom does not match origin data for Earth-based entities. Discrepancy found at genetic sequence level. Reclassification pending. Immediate review required. Cassie felt her breath catch. I'm not from Earth? That doesn't make sense. I was born there. I went to middle school in Oregon. I pay taxes. I got food poisoning at a gas station sushi bar. That's about as human as it gets. Juggernaut remained still, his glowing eyes dimming slightly. There are rare cases, he said slowly, where individuals are seeded into planetary populations by unknown external sources. Identity overlay. Biological mimicry. Sometimes deliberate. Sometimes accidental. Cassie turned to Lamp. And you didn't catch this sooner? Lamp sounded genuinely apologetic. You were filed under Earth-class designation with all relevant biological markers. But now that the tribunal flagged a deep sequence scan, the truth began to unfold. So what am I then? Some kind of alien spy? A test subject? A lost space baby? Unknown, Juggernaut replied. But the implications are severe. The tribunal will now question whether your defense of Earth is valid. If you are not truly human, your representation of the species may be considered fraudulent. Doug stepped forward finally. This is ridiculous. She lived her whole life on Earth. She eats cereal with chocolate milk. She cried watching nature documentaries. That's more than most of us do. I don't care if she's from Earth or not. She's one of us. Cassie smiled faintly at that, but it didn't last. Another voice entered the room, and this one was familiar. Alarion Supreme materialized in a beam of gold and violet light, his expression unreadable, his robes now shimmering with a shifting galaxy. We have reviewed the anomaly, he said, and we have found that your presence on Earth was not random. You were placed there, hidden, by forces we do not yet understand. Cassie stepped forward. Placed? You mean I was part of some cosmic adoption agency? Alarion's face softened slightly. You were shielded, hidden from detection by a very old encryption signature. One that predates most of the galactic archives. Whoever placed you on Earth wanted to keep you safe. Or keep you secret. Doug looked alarmed. So she's not just not human. She might be something even more dangerous? Cassie felt like the floor was slipping beneath her. Her whole life, every memory, every embarrassing haircut, every late night watching old sitcoms, all of it now floating in a sea of doubt. Was it all a lie? Was she ever really a part of that world? Alarion continued. Despite the deception, your actions in the tribunal were genuine. Your defense of Earth was heartfelt and effective. However, protocol requires that representation must come from an authentic planetary native. Then choose someone else, Cassie said quickly. Let someone else take the job. Doug can do it. He loves the sound of his own voice and already thinks he's a prophet of burritos. Doug held up a finger. Not wrong. Alarion raised his hand. That is not possible. You were the one chosen by the tribunal, by Juggernaut himself. And despite your origin, you now stand at a unique crossroads. You are the bridge between what Earth is and what lies beyond. You are the first of your kind to speak for two worlds. Cassie stared at him. That sounds poetic, but it also sounds like you want to use me as some kind of galactic translator/mascot. We wish to offer you a role, Alarion said. Not as a defendant, but as an emissary. A representative not just of Earth, but of all hidden or forgotten origins. There are more like you out there. Seeds scattered across countless planets. Lost identities. Buried truths. You could help them. Help us understand them. And in doing so, protect Earth through service rather than defense. Cassie took a deep breath. You want me to leave Earth behind? Alarion nodded. For now. Not forever. She looked to Doug, who was doing his best to look supportive, but mostly looked like someone who had been handed a math test written in fire. She looked to Lamp, who floated beside her with a soft glow, saying nothing, but somehow managing to look proud. Cassie thought of everything that had happened. The abduction, the ridiculous trial, the talent show, the discovery that she wasn't entirely who she thought she was. It was too much, too fast. And yet something in her gut told her that this moment mattered more than any before. She wasn't just a passenger anymore. She was becoming the driver of something much larger. All right, she said. I'll do it. But on one condition. Alarion's eyebrows raised. I want to visit Earth whenever I want. I want to eat greasy street food and watch bad movies and wear pajamas to the grocery store. I want to remind myself where I learned how to love being alive. Agreed, said Alarion with a bow. And one more thing, she added, glancing at Doug. Keep an eye on him. If he builds another time anchor, I want full authority to throw him into a black hole. Doug grinned. Fair. As the chamber began to shift around her once more, as a new platform rose to carry her to a different part of the galaxy, Cassie took one last look at the people and chaos that brought her here. Earth wasn't perfect, and maybe she wasn't either. But somehow, that had turned out to be the exact qualification the universe needed most. Juggernaut stepped beside her, walking with slow precision. He didn't speak in poetry this time. Just a single sentence. You are not a mistake. Cassie smiled at that. For the first time in a long time, she believed it. The stars opened around her like 1,000 doors waiting to be walked through. And Cassie Bloom, once a data analyst with a half-stamped coffee card, walked into the cosmos as something entirely new.